opening up like okay. Session titled From Africa to the World, Producing Stories That Travel. So today we'll be exploring how African stories can move, beyond borders while staying authentic. And I'm really excited to be joined by Ariane. Yay. So Ariane, for joining us. Thank you so much for taking our time to join us today. So let me quickly introduce Ariane. She's a producer and a consultant, and she's the founder of Celestine Blue, with over 25 years of experience in the television industry. She's widely recognized for her work in African content and animation, developing and producing original African IPs for both local and global audiences. And through Celestine Blue, she not only creates content, but also supports project financing, distribution, and training programs for emerging animation talents across the continent. She has held leadership roles at major global networks, including Nickelodeon, Gulli, which is France's #1 kids channel, and Warner Bros. Her work is deeply rooted in inclusive storytelling and cross-cultural collaboration and empowering the next generation of African creatives. So please join me rather as I welcome Ariane Suveg. Thank you for joining us today. Okay,
thank
so thank you. Let's just dive into thank you for our conversation for today. It's such an incredible journey you've had, across the global networks and African storytelling. So I would just love for us to start with your experience, what first drew you into producing, and how did African stories become such a central part of your work? Let's start from there.
Okay, thank you, Ladi, and again, hello to everyone, and thank you for having me today with you, and well done to the organizers of the Afro Animation, Women Animation Festival. It's a great initiative, and I'm very happy to be part of it. So, as you mentioned, in the previous years, before I founded my own company, I was leading the kids channels at Warner Bros. For France, in France and also in Africa. So during this time, I really started exploring African animation, and I became absolutely fascinated by both the storytelling in animation, so the stories themselves, the global aesthetics, the designs, and I became passionate about this conversation I had with the local creative people across the continent. So what I decided is to try to turn Cartoon Network a bit less US oriented and European oriented, and I thought it would be really interesting to support the growth of African animation, and because I was at Warner, to include some African animation, especially on Warner's channel and especially on Cartoon Network. So I launched the first original productions from Africa, entirely produced in Africa for Cartoon Network, and in live action, but also in animation. And one of these production is currently now on HBO Max across Europe, which is a great exposure for African production. And so when I launched my own company, the objective was really to continue supporting the African animation growth. So as you said, I'm currently working on development and production of African original IP, particularly in South Africa, Nigeria, and Benin. I've been also building a new production activity for MTN, the mobile group, because they are about to launch a new streaming app, which is really focused on local content. So I've been building this production activity in live action, but also including a fantastic animated series that will be launched quite soon. So yes, I mean, it's really my passion, and it's also because I'm fully convinced that the African creativity in animation has very strong opportunities on the international market, has really an opportunity first to serve local audiences, because obviously in Africa, I think kids are not clearly underserved by animation, but it's also because there is an incredible potential in terms of storytelling that needs really to travel across the world. I think you're on mute, Lady.
My bad. Okay, so that's a really interesting backstory. Thank you so much for sharing. So I think I would also want to know your perspective. Like, what do you think makes a story travel, across cultures? I know you've had experiences with stories that have gone global. So what do you think is that thing that makes it, go global?
Yes, that's a very good question. I think there is no obvious recipe, right? I think one of the first question is regarding this question is often to know, okay, how can we make very local stories traveling across the world without losing the authenticity, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yes. That is.
I think the question makes sense. Personally, I feel that it's a bit of a wrong debate, because I feel that it's precisely authenticity that makes the projects appealing on the global stage, right? That will really open doors, because authenticity is really a good way to reach a kind of uniqueness, which is key for success, for differentiation, etc. And that's currently what global players are looking for. They are looking for something that has not been seen before, something different. So that's why fundamentally authenticity, local authenticity, is really a very strong point and the key of success. And I think authenticity makes you keep the core soul of your project.
Mm-hmm.
And when you discuss concretely with partners, whether they are co-producers or podcasters, etc., at some point, this authentic soul is the key thing to convince, right? Because it's really discussion between human simple human beings, right? And so animation is a passion. We will have this passion for stories. We want to build fantastic worlds, etc. And really, what we see, what I see in this authenticity is really fascinating. So it's really a strength for African creative people in animation. So I think we can really be optimistic on the fact that local animation will travel, and in general, animation is the genre that travels the best, right? It's quite easy to add other languages to local languages, local African languages, which are very powerful for the local audiences.
Yeah.
But then I think we all need to be quite realistic on the context, the specific context on the market right now. which is very challenging. I mean, the international market, because we are facing massive changes currently on this market, especially because there is a shift and some huge changes on the big broadcasting groups, right? In the past, a few years ago, the goal when you had a project was to start discussing with big broadcasters. They were willing to commission a lot of animation projects from a very early stage of development, and it
Okay.
was not easy but doable to enter into this discussion, to have a broadcaster on board that would finance most part of the production, right? And then you were entering into a virtual circle of co-production and have a release of your show on channels or streaming platforms, right?
Okay.
Now, the reality for now is that these big players are cutting their budgets a lot,
Oh,
especially for animation. So it
oh,
means that they invest less and less in commissioning new animated shows. Animation is less their priorities. So they continue to invest, but more in acquisitions. So for more or pre-buy. So it means that there is less money for animation. And we see even here in France, a lot of animation studios that are now in difficulties. So it's really challenging. This is linked to the fact that we have this big shift in
mm-hmm.
terms of the way kids are consuming content,
Yeah.
leaving the traditional linear channels and moving to streaming platform, but also a lot on YouTube, so that the global business model of these big groups is changing. And this is also why they are merging. We see a lot of merger on the international market, and even in Africa. We've seen recently that Canal Plus has merged with MultiChoice. Canal Plus has announced quite a few days ago that they may shut down Showmax,
Oh, wow.
probably rebranding Showmax into the Canal Plus global brand and global SVOD platforms, right? So it's true that it's challenging and it it's becoming a little bit more complicated. But I mean, if we think back to the audience needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kids still always still need fresh content, fresh IP. So there's still this need to serve the audience. So there are still a lot of opportunities. Also, we see that there are moves regarding AI in animation,
Yes. AI, that's true. Yeah.
often see as a disruptive element. There are lots of fears, etc. On my side, I see AI more like an opportunity for African creatives in animation. It's more
Okay.
about how to use AI to support the production process. But I would say that it will also give a chance to African animation on the global market. If we can also integrate AI in a nice way to our production process locally, it will also help. So, but it's a bit of a challenge for now. So, but it's important, I think, to have a realistic view on this
Mm-hmm.
market before
Mm-hmm.
thinking how to push these African stories on this market.
Okay, yeah.
I would say, again, considering the demand on the African continent itself, I would say that for the new projects in animation we may have, based on African stories, it is good first to think about how these projects are going to find their audience and be distributed on the continent. And it's back to my point around authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be authentic to serve the local audiences, hyper local audiences or regional audiences. That's the first point. And then, yes, we can shape the stories to reach a more global market. And regarding this, I think while staying very authentic, it's very good to first include a distribution plan, to have a distribution plan in mind when we're working concretely on shaping these stories, and
Mm-hmm.
to add a strong marketing layer and package around the project themselves. And to add this marketing package, it's really, I think it's important that we always go back to very basic question when we are at development stage or during the production process. Very basic questions that help shape the projects as brands, right? As IP,
Mm-hmm.
to create really unique, specific, and distinctive words. And among these very basic questions, I think the first one is always ask ourselves again and again, what's the core target of our shows, right? What's our audience? What are the habits of this target group? Uh, what are their favorite shows? What are the competitive shows?
Mm-hmm.
What is the route and the distribution opportunities to reach this audience? To be very clear on, yes, the core target of our stories. And then it's about shaping the story itself to make it resonate for a broader audience. And on this subject and this topic, it's also be able to market the promise of a show in a very few sentences, to have a very clear promise and message, right? If it's to be also clear on the genre of the animated series we are creating or the animated feature film, right?
Okay.
The genres, if it's comedy, it's true that on the international market,
Mm-hmm.
it's really still the main genre because it's very federative, right? So when we develop, when we produce, when we are on the writing phase or the storyboarding phase, how can, we can create big loves? How can we make the show really, really funny with a high pace? It's very important also the question of pace, because you always need to have in mind, okay, what are the best shows on the international market, very strong on comedy? What are the tools they are using? What is the pace? And you will see that kids are very used to very fast-paced comedy shows.
Mm-hmm.
If another draw, for example, is adventure or epic stories, and I know that it's a quite interesting draw coming from Africa, because I see a lot of very, very good projects, inspired by all the African mythologies, great
Yeah.
characters, etc. So if you are entering this route of big adventures, etc., and you're creating a full world, right? How can you make this world really fascinating, distinct from what has been seen before, with really engaging characters with who the audience can relate to and be
Yeah,
really
relatable characters.
a
Yeah.
fan of the characters, right? And then a third genre is the educational shows. It's also a genre that is a lot that it explored a lot on the continent, and it makes sense, I think. Also to learn more, discover more about the local African cultural heritages, local languages, etc. So it makes sense.
Okay.
On the international market, the perception of educational shows is a bit different in the sense that there is really the conviction that kids are looking for entertainment first. And education can be a bit boring, right? So if we are working on educational shows, the questions we always need to ask ourselves again during the production process is how can we plug also this entertainment dimension
Okay.
without erasing the educational purpose to really build also a specific, distinctive, and attractive work, right? So it's a mix of preserving pure authenticity because again, it would be a mistake to not keep these very authentic elements and a
Mm,
mix of what is attractive on the international market.
yeah. Okay. So it has to be like a very balanced work that you're putting out there. It has to have the authenticity, and then it's also has to have that global appeal. Yeah, I think that's a very good advice. So do you have any plans international investors and partnerships?
Sorry, Ladi, I missed the beginning of your question because you were
Oh,
frozen.
okay,
Sorry.
okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah. So I was wondering if ticking all of these boxes, like having doing your proper research, all of these things that you've mentioned, does it actually guarantee international partnership and international investors, for whatever project it is you're putting out there?
I would say it's not a guarantee
Okay.
because beyond the projects themselves, there is also the question of what would be the production model.
Okay.
And when it comes from Africa, I think there's still a lack of knowledge from international partners about what's happening on the continent in terms of animation.
Okay.
Basically, international partners doesn't really know how good and how the local studios in Africa are growing. They don't know the local talents, so there's still a need for us to promote, to show what we're doing locally, promote the studios, the works that has already been done, because I see a lot of great content already released on YouTube. So it's also about showing, okay, even though I mean, if considering that you're a local studio, even though you have not perhaps produced already a full long form series in animation, I mean, you have probably done already a lot, producing some pilots, some shorts. You
Mm-hmm.
have projects in development, etc. So it's important to showcase this material, and I try to advocate this as much as I can about with international players. But it's also interesting so to showcase the material and also to explain how we can partner across Africa, perhaps mixing talents from various territories or building some partnership between local studios, and also showing that we can create some partnerships between local studios and these international partners. Because among what we call international partners, there are also studios
Yeah.
in Europe, in the
Mm-hmm.
US, or anything everywhere else. It's interesting to try to build partnerships and co-production partnerships between African studios or talents, even individual talents, and these European studios, for example. Also because it's a good way to share risk, to improve the project themselves,
Okay.
to show to the founders that there is an aggregation of talents and different skills and different experiences. It's reassuring for investors because animation is really a long and complex process.
Yeah.
And also these kind of co-production partnerships, especially when it's with European or French studio, can also bring a new source of funding, because in some territories, especially in France, for example, we have grants coming from
Oh,
the government to help fund the production. So as soon as you are co-producing with a partner from another territory where there is this type of grants, you take benefits from these
benefits.
grants as
Yes. Oh,
well,
no. Okay.
right? And also this kind of international partners who may be more experienced in terms of delivering full long form series. They have also great connections with broadcasters, so they are also in a good position to enter into good discussions with broadcasters. And then it's like a virtual circle to get the right partners, to get more funding, and to get access to distribution. So
Mm.
partnerships in general on the continent and outside of the continent is really helpful.
Okay.
It's just that we need to sustain more and more the connection with these partners outside of Africa and make support, the visibility of what the local studios in Africa are already doing, because it has been really growing during the last years.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for explaining that explicitly. I also would want to know if there are any common mistakes that African producers make, when trying to get partnerships, international collaborations. I know you've had experiences with African producers. I don't know if you can maybe highlight some mistakes that is being made, that could hinder this collaboration and international partnerships.
That's a good question. I wouldn't say mistakes.
Okay.
I would say that different I see between African producers and European producers is that African producers are handling a lot together,
Okay.
right? Um, because they are learning a lot by themselves,
Mm-hmm.
which this is something I really admire, because they are passionate about the stories they want to tell, and they manage to find any kind of solution to make it happen in their own way, learning by themselves, etc. So it's really a strength. The thing is that regarding all the subjects we've discussed just before, regarding distribution, funding, finding the good partnerships, etc., plus the creative work, it feels that often for one studio, one African studio, or one African entrepreneur in animation, it feels a lot to cover
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
for a small team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I compare this to Europeans, here in Europe, it's true that people are trained. We have animation schools, we have a lot of facilities, etc. And it's a bit the opposite in the sense that people are more specialized and are not covering all the subjects. So I think that it's important for probably for African studios. I mean, they are incredible in the sense that they manage to cover everything, but it could be, it's not a mistake, but it's more it's probably good to acknowledge that we can't handle everything and try to recognize the weaknesses and try to specifically get some partners and to build some collaboration so that the work can be splitted, so that creative
Okay.
people can really concentrate on the creative work and maybe work with specialists on distribution and funding, etc. But this can be done probably at Pan-African level, not necessarily looking for international partners, right? Because a big part of the journey has already been done on the ground at the local level. So it's probably, yes, maybe be more open to partnerships with other studios on the ground, and yes, maybe working with a few people from the international market, but again, stay faithful to the approach we had from the beginning, because I think African people in animation have their own approach, which I found personally amazing. But the advice would say not to wear all the hats at the same time, to ensure that when you're working on the project and you need to deliver, you will deliver the project because you can focus on the creative side, or you will focus on the funding side, etc.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. So, with all that you said, I feel like African content, we actually have space out there. You know, there's space for us on the global stage. Yeah.
Definitely.
So, yeah, yeah. So, if for someone that is starting out, you know, do you have any practical advice that you could pass across for someone that is just starting out, that is starting out and would want to like make these authentic stories?
Practical advice. I think, well, it depends on if it's for people who already have stories they want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
The first advice would be perhaps to really stay focused on your own project, believe in your project, because I've been doing during the last year some trainings for young animators in Africa, and I've been really excited by their projects, from story or world, artistic and design world. And so when you're passionate about your own story, the story you want to tell, I think you really need to stay focused on this and believe in you. And then it's about to observe what is done, observe the market, screen what is done in animation across the world. What are the screen the best shows, the more consumed shows,
Okay.
to build your culture from a visual perspective and storytelling perspective. So again, so that you can have this back and forth between the world you want to build and what is working, what is attracting the audience, what are the shows that are really exposed on the main platforms, etc. So you can have a broader vision, right, to optimize your own project. And then but it's the case for all of us, not only the young generation. It's always to submit your project to a lot of people in the industry to get feedback. Try to get the more feedback you can, so you can polish your project. And it's also very good to submit projects because and start the conversation, because it's also the way you can make connections and then work with people, know more people in the animation community, and yes, to start working collaborations, right? And I think globally on the African market, it's really fantastic, because I think there's strong community around passion. And thank you again to you to organize this kind of event. And yes, it's a lot about building connections.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I hope our audiences are jotting things down because I'm learning so much. I've learned that it's as much as authenticity is important, you need strategy, you need to do your background work, you need structure. So thank you so much for that, Ariane. We're rounding up now. I don't know if the audiences would have any questions they would want to ask, and if you also would have like maybe final words or anything else you would want to add, maybe what I didn't ask you would also want to share with us. The floor is open for that as well. Let me see. No questions so far, but I think if they have, we can share them with you and get responses later.
Yes,
Yeah, okay. Okay,
pleasure.
that's fine. Yeah. So is there anything you would like to add for us? Maybe any final words?
Maybe around women,
Okay.
because we are here for Afro Women
Also,
Animation.
actually, yeah.
And I have to say that I'm very lucky, because I have the chance to work with several African women in animation.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated by their work. I think we are building a nice community. I think among us, we have great entrepreneurs. I think globally, these women are really, really hard workers, very, very smart. So what we need to do is still building this community, so that we can also really lead the animation ecosystem. And that would be nice, that the African animation ecosystem is led more and more by women. But again, when I compare what is done in Africa and the place of women in animation in Africa, It's very, very encouraging compared to some European countries where the sector and the ecosystem is still very led by men. So I would like to say well done to all the African women in animation. Well done to you. That would be my final word.
Thank you. Thank you so, so much. Thank you. Um, Thank you for joining us. We were really grateful and it was very insightful. I think we're even having feedbacks already. People are saying they learned a lot. So we'll be rounding up here. And if there are more questions, I would get them across to you. Maybe via
Okay,
email or something.
with
Yes.
pleasure. Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much,
you.
Daddy.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you. Thank you for the
Thank you,
wonderful feedback.
everyone.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll be still there to after this session to answer any questions
Okay.
and do some connections.
Okay.
I'll be available with pleasure.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time.
Letty.
And enjoy the rest of your day. Bye
You
bye.
too. Bye. Bye, everyone.